What?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the Jimmy Doane Show. This is our new, probably copyrighted material intro that we're just using for today, folks, only because the other computer is down. It's Doane. And of course, we do this live, so there's no time to fix anything. So, as you can see, no editors, no filter, no net. This is what we do, ladies and gentlemen. The Jimmy Doane Show, twice a week, 4 p.m., Greenwich Mean Time, -5 hours.
Okay.
That is us. So, we are here today. Today is the 8th day of September 2019. After the end of the show, I'll post a copy of this video up on YouTube with all the subjects time stamped, and then we'll copy it over to Twitter also. All available if you just search for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E. And so find us there. And also we've got audio formats all around the web. So welcome to the show. What is happening today? Whoa, you got closer or something.
Did I get closer?
Yeah.
I get back a little bit. Okay, good. All right. Well, the Gators won.
Yes.
Okay, that was, they were playing some team.
Yes, Tennessee, University of Tennessee.
Something. Teachers College or something.
That's right, yeah.
No, it was a home opener. Anyway, that was
night school.
Yeah, right. That's right. Okay, so we have quite a bit of news. We'll find out.
Yeah.
The Democrat candidates, they had a big. Did we talk about this last time?
No, we didn't have it yet.
Okay, well, it had a marathon.
This is the town hall you're talking about.
The town hall, right?
Yes.
And I think it was on CNN or something. Was it?
Yeah.
It was like 5 hours. Or
7 hours.
7 hours.
7 hours of whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, what? I can't. I didn't watch it, but they must have rotated out hosts. They didn't have all. They couldn't have had all those people there for 7 hours, right?
You have to go to the bathroom sometime. What do they do? I mean, everybody was sitting there with a little colostomy bag or something.
Or the only thing I can imagine is that they schedule this. Okay, you're hour number 1, you're hour number 2, you're hour number 3.
Okay, yeah.
And
you mean for the host?
Well, and also for the guests.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, why would you bring them all in at once for 7 hours? No way. That seems like a total tooth pull. I can't imagine that. But maybe
well, at any rate, they talked a tough Wednesday, and the big deal.
They saved the climate.
They saved the climate. That was the thing. They have decided that the climate change is the winning. This is the winning thing that everybody's going to vote because they're panic-stricken that in the next 12 years, where the Earth is going to spin off its axis. And
well, you saw Bill Nye the Science Clown's video, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't see that?
No, I missed that. What do you?
Oh, he pulls out like one of those old school globes.
Right. Okay.
And then he pours gasoline all over it and lights it on fire. In a purely scientific demonstration.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you.
What's going to happen.
That's one thing, I suppose. If you were from Jamaica and you're into voodoo.
Right.
That'd be perfect.
Thanks, Bill.
Right.
Way to set it off here. We were doing fine until that happened.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, they are worried about the damaging emissions from oil, gas, and coal. The lengthy climate conversations promise to hand...
The damaging emissions from life. That's right.
Well, that's true. And hand Republicans ammunition for next year's general election fight by emphasizing one common element in the change plans, their overwhelmingly costly scope. And that's the one thing is that Bernie and those guys, they're talking $17 trillion. Yeah. And one of the things that I find interesting is that I remember when Everett Dirksen, I think it was, he was from Chicago. And he said, this was 30 years ago, and he said, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, after a while it adds up to real money. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's $1 trillion here. They toss off $1 trillion as if it's 1,000 billion, right? And
let me think, to carry the, yes.
Mm-hmm. And they toss it off as if it's nothing. We can, you just get it out of your pocket or something? Like out of my pocket, I guess. Right. Yeah, or they print it, obviously.
Look, they've been off to the races, and the latest guys, and every time they get a new crew in there, they have a little bit less adherence to the conservative attitude of don't print all the money at once kind of a thing. So at this point, like we said, they're off. Everybody's off the rails.
Well, the thing is that it says here that the 10 Democrats who participated in the 7-hour series didn't shy away from making sweeping promises to reshape the American economy.
Yeah.
In service of what their party's grassroots supporters see as the paramount goal of averting global warming's most devastating effect. I mean, this is the ultimate in fear mongering, and it is, of course, that's one of the things we know is that emotions win votes.
Yeah.
You can win on emotions.
Well, look, some of them I think are probably convinced of the impending doom scenario. I mean, I've talked to some politicians, obviously, not obviously, but I've talked to some politicians who have said, this is the asteroid. This is the thing that's going to literally destroy us all. And so I can understand people who really believe that calling for drastic measures. I don't think that's the common belief. Look, even NASA they're projecting things out 100 years from now. They're not projecting 20 years and then fire after that.
Right.
You know, they're projecting the whole 100 years. Mm-hmm. And it's not nearly as devastating as the people who are the farthest on the left think it is, or project.
Well, of course, it's obvious that it's to me. It's obvious that it's all about control, if they have your money, they have you.
Well, I have to agree that there's obviously a certain group of people out there who are using it as a political.
It's interesting to me when you see, and I caught this little phrase the other day. Maybe I have it in here, and it has to do with how smart they are. They are smarter than all of us. And they know what the problem is, and they know the solution. They understand.
You're saying that facetiously, right?
Well, no. They actually believe that they have the solution.
Right. No, I know.
They have the Green New Deal. Right. Here it is. You idiots don't understand what trouble we're in.
No. Thornburg, the little Greta girl, 16-year-old, was saying exactly that. I understand. It's easy. It's black and white.
I'm 16. I've been here 16 whole years.
That's right.
And I understand what's going on here. Right. And I'm panic-stricken for my life.
Right. Right. Well, she says she wants you to fear the panic.
What they said is we have a moral responsibility to act boldly.
Right. Well, if you think it's an impending doom, then that's what you would say. Well, we have to, because
I'm reminded of one of the great movies that I saw called let's see, what was it? When Earth, something about Earth, and what happened was there was a planet that was coming to Earth, going to hit Earth, and they figured it all out. I wish I could remember the name of it. I'm losing it. But one of the deals was they privately funded this rocket to go to this other planet. Uh-huh. And there was this one guy in a wheelchair who was filthy rich, and he funded the whole thing. And you could see the impend as it would come closer and closer. You'd see it up there, and right at the end, they shoved this guy off, and they loaded up the rocket with another bunch of people, and they took off. It took down this ramp, and they took off and went to the other planet. But that's an impending doom.
Right.
That you can see that. And it was like 2 or 3 months.
There are people who are convinced that what will happen if we look. They come out with this 12-year number, and there are people who have believed that number as though it's a hard deadline that we have created. Here's what I've been told. That we've created what will become a confluence of events, systems that will spiral out of control and combine.
Tipping point.
That's
tipping
right.
Point.
The threshold event.
Well, what that one guy said of the hockey stick.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Which is the hockey stick itself is total bullcrap.
Right.
But we have seen there have been hockey sticks in the past. We've talked about it several times. The two meltwater pulses at 11,000 and 16,000 years ago, where the rate of tidal increase was up 5 to 10 times what it is now. Mm-hmm. But that's what it was then. It's not. There's no hockey stick. There's no major increase. There's no anything like that. It's if there's a problem, nuclear will solve it, and we have plenty of time to implement that. We could replace all of the fossil fuel energy that we create in this country in less than 5 years, or fewer than 5 years.
With the stage 4.
Even with stage 3 nuclear.
Stage 3 nuclear.
You could do, with the power that we get out of each new nuclear plant, we'd only need 100 new plants. We could put them around, like you say, right where we need them. And no problems anymore. Done deal. You don't even have to... I mean, the things they were talking about, the phasing out of the fossil fuels and stuff, they haven't considered the detriments to that, the things like the inability of factory farms. I mean, even Bernie said he wants to phase out factory farms. Well, that feeds everybody.
Well, it's interesting you should mention that. We're going to talk about that in a minute, because Bernie's all for population control.
Right. Well, that was, everybody has said some weird stuff. I got a couple of weird things out of that.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
Well, Bernie I thought it was interesting. First of all, his $16 trillion climate change as a necessary response to the scientists' calls for dramatic cuts. And what he also has said here is, at the town hall, he said he's willing to talk about population control, suggesting that abortion is key to addressing the climate crisis. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine if a Republican had said that?
Oh my gosh! This is the ultimate, it seems to me, in racism, because.
Well, some people are saying that
I mean, how can you avoid it? Who is having babies? When you look at
the poor, I guess.
Well, not only that, but when you look at the replacement in Italy, England, in the white countries,
I understand, but
the replacement, they're not replacing. You need 2.2 birth, and like Italy is 1.6 or something. They're not replacing.
I understand, and look, but what you're talking about is an outcome that's racial, not an intent that's racial. Bernie's not intentionally racist. That's probably the first time that he said that, and people pointed out to him, "Hey, by the way, do you know you're talking about people of color, so to speak."
That's right. Absolutely.
But if he doesn't know that, then it's not racist. Even if the outcome is racist, you have to intend to be racist to be racist. You have to intend to do anything.
Who does he think? But what I'm saying is, who does he think are the people that are having all these children?
I think he said it was poor. I mean, I imagine, I didn't hear the actual comments, but my guess is it's people in poor.
Human population growth has more than doubled in 50 years, which we know that. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. An attendee told senators.
What is he worried about population for? What's the problem there? Because
the Earth cannot sustain this continued population growth. It's doubled to 7 billion.
So he's been told that we're going to mow down all the rainforest to have cows to feed these
something
14.
along those lines. But where are we going to put all these people? If in another 50 years we have 14 billion people on the planet, how do you support them? Now, one of the things
what a crazy lunatic!
This is insanity, because this is Malthusian.
Exactly.
What people don't realize is, and Malthus had it exactly backwards. This was the problem. Malthus said
he was perfectly wrong.
He was exactly wrong, and at the time nobody pointed it out. And what he said was, agriculture is linearly. You can linearly do more agriculture, but population is exponential.
Right.
So the population is going to outgrow the ability to feed this population.
By the 1970s,
whenever it was.
Yeah.
But whenever it was, the problem being that what he didn't understand was it's the other way around. The populations do not start to increase until their food is there. That's exactly it. I mean, that's precisely. You don't run there and have babies.
Correlation with causation.
It's amazing to me that when you look at the various population growth, it has to do with agriculture, with improvements in agriculture, with the addition.
Right. Well, look, we know there's been famines in the past.
Of course,
that's what he's pointing out, or not pointing out, but that's the imagery that he's relying on in his analogy. But you're totally right. You can't get massive population increases without massive food increases.
Right.
But the other thing that he was totally wrong about is agriculture. He didn't come to imagine anything like, I don't know, genetic engineering or fertilizer or stuff like that.
Well, as one classic example that comes up was when India got their new rice.
Right, exactly. And
they were importing rice, and now they're an exporter.
Right. No, I mean, look, that's happened several different times in the past, and it's going to keep happening. We've got so much room, and all you have to do to know it is go on Google and Google images and Google Earth at night, and you'll see how much space is left.
Lots. And what is another thing that maybe it's a little off base here, when you realize that roughly 2/3 of the Earth is water. So maybe there'll be seasteading. People are talking about seasteading. But I don't think you have to do that when
poor people out in the ocean, man.
Yeah, right. That's right. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have an inner tube, and I'm.
We had at least one engineer who totally would have volunteered to live in the ocean.
Who's this?
Engineer Eric.
Oh, well, now right. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
That was where he wanted to homestead. So
that's exactly correct. But it's interesting to me that he wants to empower women, educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign
well,
to
everybody's
enact.
call him out for that as a racist thing. But it's not racist. Sorry, everybody. It's a horrible idea. But it's not racist.
Well, the thing about it is, I saw something that said the entire population, 7 billion people, if you did it right, they would go in New Mexico or something.
Texas.
Is it Texas?
Yeah.
You can actually do it.
Yeah, you can't really. It's not quite. The thing is, you could give everybody an acre in Texas. Texas is so big. That's the meme.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but it's not quite. It's not quite that.
There's
big.
not 7 billion acres in Texas.
No, that's the whole point. It's a little bit off. It's off by like a factor of 4 or something like that.
Well, certainly a lot more than that. But what you see is a place like Singapore or Hong Kong,
right,
where it's vertical.
Yeah.
New York City.
Look, we will find a way. We will find a way. Look, nobody's worried about foods or famines or anything anymore. People get blown off the map in freaking in the Bahamas. We're there in 24 hours, man. We got boats. Get on. Get your kids. Get what's left. Come on. We're out of here. I mean, things are in pretty good shape here. I'll tell you one thing. Something I figured out last week. I didn't realize this, but every 2 days last year, as many people became new millionaires in the United States as have died in every mass shooting that we've ever had going back to 1966.
Really?
Yeah.
One of the things, of course, that does that is inflation, because $1 million is damn sure not what it was.
You're killing my.
I'm sorry.
No, there's no question about that.
I mean, if you were in Zimbabwe, you became a billionaire in a week.
Right.
Everybody.
A lot of billionaires. That's all true, and I have to bow to that. But still, in terms of the rate of change, I think that's impressive. Every 2 days, another 1,500 millionaires.
That's amazing.
Basically 750 a day is how many we're pumping out at this point.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
They can buy something. Next thing I've got has to do with Brexit.
Okay.
Now I have not followed this thing in its entirety.
Every time you bring Brexit up, you're like, I don't know what this means.
No, I've seen it. It is all over the place.
Right.
I said last time that Boris was going to do something, and it turned out he didn't. Or
yeah, well, there was a question of he called for a vote, and they blocked him doing something like you said, and then he called for a vote, and then they blocked the new vote. He came out and said, well, that's the first time the opposition leaders ever squashed a vote because they could potentially take over. But I'm with you. I haven't been watching
What I've seen so far is that a law that will make a no-deal Brexit illegal without parliamentary approval has been passed by the House of Lords. The bill will require Boris Johnson to ask Brussels for an Article 50 extension, and then they will stay in the European Union until January 31st. So they want another extension,
right,
to get things done.
Well, look, Jeremy Corbyn and the Socialists want to stay in. So.
I guess they're in love with bureaucracies.
Of course they are.
Because one of the great movies.
In their minds, bureaucracies provide everything.
Yes. And
why would you want to have less government?
Yeah. My gosh. I wouldn't know what to do without the government telling me what to do.
Well, no, you didn't build that. Nobody built anything.
That's right.
We're all here because of...
I thought it was interesting that the Prime Minister, he had pledged to take the country out of the EU by Halloween.
Yes.
I thought that was a perfect note, yep.
Oh, you just did white power.
That's right. So they are now expected to receive royal assent on Monday to become law. Apparently, the Queen has to weigh in on this somehow.
I, again, unfortunately, have not kept up with the particulars of the British parliamentary and...
One of the great movies I saw before Brexit, before the vote, they came out with a movie. It was obviously biased, I understand that, but on why you should get out, why the Brits should get out. And it was very well done. It made a compelling case for that they should never have been in there in the first place, and they should, and that was right before the original vote.
Well, that I've looked at a couple of times,
Yeah.
and I can think of several reasons. Now, I saw something that was even more interesting, which actually may have something to do with the motivations of the Remainers. And that is, I saw a British MP saying, look, Britain is the largest and most powerful player in the EU. Once Britain goes...
Wait.
According to the MEP...
Other than Deutschland?
Well, and that's what he said. He said once Britain goes, Germany will have to go.
See you guys.
Well, the whole. I mean, look, Germany. Germany's. Yeah, right. Now you did it. So, yeah, Germany. That's just an interesting concept because can the EU survive without Germany and Britain? That
Probably not.
it certainly seems like a more spurious arrangement. And with this particular MEP was trying to point out the benefits to all countries in the event of a dissolution. He said that the minor countries are being enslaved via the inflation of the euro, basically, and they are going to have to pay back unsustainable debts at this point.
Right. Yeah. Well. And it seems to me that that's right here. We're certainly not going to pay back 22 trillion. Or
Well,
whatever.
I mean, certainly be a lot easier if they just sort of said, "What euro?
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to
We
have.
have the peso over here. I don't know what you're talking about. Euros."
That's right. That's right.
We gave
Well, then, of
those
course,
back.
that was the thing about the Brits. Of course, they still have the pound. So, bye-bye. I thought one of the articles that I did read was that Britain can't fix Brexit until it drafts a constitution. Now, I thought this was interesting because the crisis, it says this crisis is in turn the bequest of generations of making minor tweaks to an unwritten constitution while avoiding the extremely difficult decisions needed to write a new one. As you know, as we've said before, they don't have a constitution, a written constitution.
Yeah.
Which is why the freedom, all this stuff is from
Now would not be-
Runnymede to today is what they've done. It has been ensconced in habits or something.
Yeah, well, and now would be a horrible time to codify all that stuff because
You can imagine.
you can imagine who'd get their paws in there. The
Oh my
thing,
gosh.
It would be just. I mean, it'd make a camel look like a sleek, leopardy type of thing. I mean,
No question.
Just,
It says here on the one. This is what this guy is saying. Is on the one hand, they've had a real problem because they have two forms of quote democracy. They have a representative and a representative democracy, leaving decisions to the elected MPs. But they have a direct democracy. Apparently, that's what the MPs. They're the ones that actually do the work. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but the House of Cards style intrigue plainly shows the limits of a representative democracy. A representative democracy, I guess, is like a republic, sort of.
yeah, I mean, is their House of Lords elected by a different group? Is that how they do it?
They're not elected.
Oh, there you go. So
No, they're appointed. The House of Lords is hereditary. I mean, you can be the fifth.
Lord, elected? What are you
always
talking
say,
about?
You're in here and you're fifth Earl of Sidcup.
That's right.
And yes, well, I'm in the House of Lords. Yeah, I don't think that they. I don't know how new people get in there. But I think there's some kind of royalty that's involved. Somebody could tell me what that is. I'm not sure. So it is interesting because there is bitter fighting now between Parliament and Boris and those other people. They all have their little agendas.
Well, we knew that was going to be bitter fighting anyway. This
Right.
all comes down to.
Well, this is what Boris was trying to do. He was trying to get it. Let's get her done.
Yeah.
And now you can't fight anymore.
Well, and look, at least he's forcing the issue. That's what he was in there to do, was to force the issue. And that's all you can do. It's similar to the rub when we do criminal defense. At some point, you have to go in there and either arrange something or you have to say, well, let's go to trial. And this is the same kind of thing. I think he was trying to win by October 31st.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
So now the leftists have raised their heads, and we'll see what
We'll
happens.
see. That's right. We'll talk about maybe.
Won't be long.
I think not really our problem. I don't think anyway.
I don't think it's going to impact us to any great extent. I do think Britain will become a better trading partner for us.
I believe
because
that.
I think instantly they would seek as many deals as they could with our companies, and you would just have it would just be open season on commercialism and capitalism. I think
It would be
between the two.
historic because one of the things that was interesting in the beginning, before the revolution, we were a tremendous trading partner with England at the time. I mean, there were people in the States that set up their businesses in London.
And we still are. I think
Yeah, I know.
third or fourth or something on the list. So
It's interesting. All right, here's another piece of news that I want to chat about. California becomes the first state in the nation to outlaw fur trapping, and I thought, gosh, you got to be kidding me! The first state. So I guess that fur trapping is legal in 49 states.
okay.
California just became the first state in the nation to outlaw fur trapping. The Wildlife Protection Act of 2019 and forbids the trapping of gray fox, coyote, beaver, badger, and mink, along with the sale of their pelts. So no more.
All I can say is it's a good thing that the California legislature is focused on such important life-saving
Well, what's
issues,
interesting
right?
about it, and I thought they had it kind of backwards here. They will officially end an industry that lawmakers argued was too small and costly to regulate. You had to pay a fee. You had to get a permit.
Right.
The 133 trapping licenses in 2017, just fur dealer licenses sold in the same year, just over $16,000 in revenue. Well, it costs way more than that to, quote, enforce the thing. During the same time, 68 trappers killed more than 1,500 animals, and among them the ones I just did, and the pelts collectively sold for less than $9,000. Okay, so some far beneath the costs accrued by the state to oversee the industry. So what they decided to do, they're not going to issue any more licenses, but they're going to outlaw the trapping. And I'm sitting there thinking, you shouldn't have had the license in the first place. It's such a small thing. Can you imagine $9,000 worth of pelts in an economy that's like the 6th largest on the planet if it's just all by itself? What are you talking about? This is insanity. Not only does cruel fur trapping trade decimate our increasingly vulnerable wildlife populations, running this program doesn't even make fiscal policy. I understand that. It doesn't. So what is stunning to me is
Like
that
I
they
said.
decided to outlaw something that has been on because what they did do, apparently at some point in time they passed a law to regulate it. They set up the fur trapping department of fur trapping or
gotcha.
something, and now
Shut it down. Shut it all down. Well, look, this is why I say it's remarkable to me that they have the time to focus on something that it has a grand total of $9,000 impact
$9,000
on their state.
but it's cruel.
Well, and that's why it's
Emotion.
an issue. Yeah, exactly. And a related
No more
story.
coonskin hats. Well, you know.
In a related story, I mean, obviously they need to get out of the way, let the market handle it. Something that's happened in Louisiana. Do you know what Altria, I think is what it's called. That's not.
Altria is the name of a cigarette company.
Yeah, it is. But there is a rodent.
Okay.
That's somewhere between a rat and a seal or something. It looks like it.
Yeah, okay.
It's sort of like a capybara. It's a little. Anyway, they've proliferated throughout Louisiana.
Oh, really?
And there are the same type of thing. They have people go out there and trap them and kill them and collect them. Well, now they have finally got the rights to use the meat from the animal in dog treats, and it gives them a whole another
treats.
Yeah, the dogs love them. Well, according to them.
Yeah.
But the point is that up until then, they obviously were banned from using the meat of these wild rodents that were trapped and killed. The people could use the pelts, and then they would use the remains for gator bait. But now
How about eating it?
Well, again, this comes back. This is like the pythons and the
Python meat good eating?
That's what I'm saying, or at least dog treat meat.
Yeah.
But so these trappers out in California, I wonder what if they only got 9,000 from the pelts. I wonder if they were able to even do anything with the meat from the animals.
I have no idea. Well, there was quite a number of them. I was surprised. That's what gave me a little suspicion about the numbers here, because it said 1,500 animals at $9,000. I mean, you do the math, it's like $3 a pelt or $6 a pelt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. It hardly seems worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, you have to, a pelt. You have to put some real work in there. And if the minimum wage is $15 in California, if it takes you more than an hour, you make $6. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they got a pelt machine and just throw the.
But again, you got to buy that.
Yeah.
So, I'm suspecting it might be interesting to take a closer look at this. But anyway, the bottom line is they banned it, and this is one of those things that never should have been in the first place, as you just said. Also in Louisiana, what are you talking about? You got basically what amounts to an invasive species. And I would say that if you're in the bayou country out there, and what's the matter with having a little whatever this is, soup or something?
Totally.
The guys who are the guys with the beards out there, the duck guys, duck men or whatever. Okay, well, some really sad news I need to bring up. The Robert Mugabe, the former Zimbabwe leader, died at age 95. One of the things I thought was interesting about this article was the current president of Zimbabwe hailed this person. What he said was he was died surrounded by his family, including his wife Grace. We wrote on Twitter, "It is with the utmost sadness that I announce the passing on of Zimbabwe's founding father and former president, Commander Robert Mugabe. Commander Mugabe was an icon of liberation, pan-Africanist who dedicated his life to the emancipation and empowerment of his people. His contribution to the history of our nation and continent will never be forgotten. May his soul rest in peace." I'm sitting there. This guy was the worst of the worst tyrants. He was horrible. I think, wasn't that Rhodesia before it became Zimbabwe?
I don't remember.
I think it was. Right. I think it was, and that's when they got liberated more or less from England, and but of course all white farmers and everything, they all had to hoof it out of there. But then they had the unbelievable inflation. They killed people right and left. This is what's interesting. Under Mugabe's leadership, the economy of the mineral-rich country descended into chaos, with thousands of people reduced to grinding poverty and reduced to near starvation. But he for 40 years he was a tyrant.
Well, look. We got to remember, every country is mob rule. This is just a smaller, more obvious mob rule when it comes down to it. Hey, he's making those kinds of proclamations because he has loyalties to somebody. Somebody says, "You better, I need you to say some nice words about Mugabe when you get up there." Okay. You guys.
What a load of hypocrisy! It's just unbelievable. This guy was, by any measure, a horrible, horrible person. I mean, there was death, destruction, everything. Here's a country that is, when they say mineral rich, it's a good-sized country. Mineral rich, it's got everything you'd want. It's like Venezuela with oil. Okay. And look what happens.
Well, but still, they've had a few decades to develop now. In total, so then, and of course,
been 40 years at least.
Right, that's a few decades, and of course, it started off at the end of the war, so it was awash with military people from all over. So,
I guess I don't know. It was the, yeah.
Look, I'm not trying to make any excuses for him. I'm just trying to say this is what you would expect from a small African mineral-rich country that descended out of colonialism into.
What happened? Did we sign off? Are we gone? No, here we are, we're back.
So
anyway, well, whatever it is, it's one of those things that I was reading further in the article, that the people that were up there in the hierarchy, in the bureaucracy, I mean, they're getting rich, filthy rich.
Sure.
And very small. You talk about the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
Hokey smokes. One of the things that I find interesting is they talk about the haves and the have-nots in this country. You ain't seen nothing until you go to these places.
Well, sure. But these are, like you say, these are the worst examples of the worst things. And it's wild that the guy lived to 95.
Absolutely. Yes.
Made it out.
Next item.
What you got?
Johns Hopkins opened a new psychedelic research center.
Ooh, cool.
They want to study the use of magic mushrooms. The Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research at Johns Hopkins Medicine is being funded by a $17 million donation from private donors. Why? Because the federal government doesn't allow it. They can't fund it, which is fine, as far as I'm concerned. The Hopkins Center's research will focus on applications of the drugs for treating opioid addiction, Alzheimer's, PSD or whatever, PTSD, eating disorders, and depression, among other things. So apparently they're going to do a lot of research on
About time,
right? I mean, it used to be you could go not far from here, down the road over here in the field.
Do a little research.
There, right there. When they were having the cows out there, anytime you look around and, it's a cow pie, okay. That's it. I remember that. Oh, gosh. Okay. Now, the next thing, speaking of drugs, scientists are unveiling a weed breathalyzer.
Ugh.
Launching debate over the next steps. What are the things
Sounds
apparently
horrible.
what they've done? Well, as more and more states legalize recreational use of this thing, the breathalyzer type devices that theoretically could aid police enforcement.
Of course it's what it's.
Of course it is. Have begun appearing in the various stages of development. But legal experts and scientists say there's kind of a long way to go because you have to be able to define, as you can with alcohol, 0.08, but with the breathalyzer, who knows? Apparently it uses these little nanotubes to figure out something.
Yeah.
They have the device uses carbon nanotubes, which are 1/100,000th the size of a human hair, to recognize the presence of THC, even when other substances like bad breath are there. I thought it was interesting that what they don't know is what constitutes an impairment.
Right. Well, and that's the whole thing. And what this machine is designed to do is to make it easy for juries to convict people, because they just point at the machine and they say the machine said guilty. And so
it is. I mean,
it's the same with the breathalyzer thing. It's like if you blow and you got the breathalyzer, if that's the evidence you got to go up against, it's like you're not going to win. Because they're just going to point at the machine and say, well, we plugged them in this machine that cops use all over the country to determine when people are intoxicated.
But there's a number. As far as the THC, what number are they going to use? That's what they're having.
They'll just come up with something.
Well, I understand. They would just come up with something. Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. You are impaired if you blow up whatever they call that measure.
That's right. The concentration in your mouth shows that you smoked it within the last 24 hours or last 5 hours or something. And
they said the big deal they're worried about is they want to avoid flagging pot use from several days prior.
Exactly. That's their problem right now.
Yeah, that's
the problem. See, right now, their test goes back like 30 days.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So they don't have a test. They don't have a good, effective test. So what you do is, I mean, I've had people get off of their DUI charges because they were charged with DUI marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went to court the next day, we would show up with clean drug screens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those drug screens would have shown the marijuana in their system going back, if they had it, for the last 30 days.
Oh, is that right?
So they couldn't have been high the night before or the week before.
Okay.
If these things don't show up positive. But unfortunately, they're no good for law enforcement because you can't tell when, if the test comes back positive, they could have smoked 30 days ago.
That's true.
So
that's what they're trying to do is to say, how do they sort that out?
Exactly.
That's
And look, this whole
of course,
thing-
it also depends, I suppose, how much you smoke. And if you
Of
were
course.
totally loaded out 30 days ago, and
That's why
if you just had one little puff, or you walk through a room.
It's a ridiculous fool's errand to try to determine the level of distraction that the average driver experiences, and this is again trying to avoid the need to have any harm or any detriment.
That's the thing. I would think that if you have a wreck, that's a wreck.
Well,
There's
exactly.
damage.
Exactly.
Now you can say, okay, you shouldn't have.
did something.
You did something, right?
That's right.
But if you're just driving along and they stop you for whatever reason,
And that's
I
it's
smelled
weird.
dope.
That's right. Or we've tested your blood and you have X chemical in your system, which tells us the probability of you getting into an accident is greater than if you did not have that in your system.
How much greater?
Well, and not only that, but what about compared to other people?
Right.
You may be totally impaired relative to how you normally are, but totally fine relative to the 89-year-old driver next to you.
Right.
So, look, and that's why it's a fool's errand. The whole thing comes down to they could just call the entire category distracted driving. But they should wait for the harm to occur. They should wait for the accident, for something to happen. If there has to be bad driving somewhere, there should have to be bad driving somewhere, but there doesn't.
Well, there was a thing I was watching about on the cop thing there. When can they stop you and when can they ask for? They have to have probable cause to stop you. So
yes,
you have to be. But they can make it up, I suppose. You know,
well,
we saw you weaving over the yellow line.
Well, no, I'll give you an example. They can walk up to you parked in a parking lot with your car running, and if you're in the car with the keys in the car with you, in fact, the car doesn't even have to be running. If they can smell the alcohol, that gives them probable cause. Mm-hmm. So here you are, not even driving, maybe not even planning to drive. But because you have the keys and because you're intoxicated, that constitutes DUI. So, and I've had, unfortunately, people convicted of sitting in their own driveway. Yeah, because they didn't want to, this one time, this guy didn't want to get out and go inside because his air conditioning wasn't working very well inside, and it worked well in the truck. Mm-hmm. So he was going to sleep it off in the truck where he could sleep better in the AC. And the cops pulled him over in his driveway.
In his driveway, wow.
And gave him a DUI.
I wonder what the probable cause was on that.
Well, the probable cause is, that's what I'm saying, is the elements of the DUI don't require any harm. All they require are actual physical control of the vehicle and intoxication.
But what are they doing on this guy's property in the first place?
I don't remember why. I don't remember what they came.
I guess maybe they were just checking on to make sure he wasn't committing suicide or something.
Suicide? Yeah.
Just sitting there with the car running is something. Okay, well, that's going to be interesting. So
anyway, but it's a horrible situation. But it'll all be fixed anyway with the self-driving cars.
Yes, that'll be interesting. Next item, the government in your government in action here, demanding answers. A New York City homeowner racks up more than $300,000 in fines for a home covered in garbage. Mm. I thought this was kind of interesting. She's defended the unsightly pile of trash bags in a heap outside her Jamaica home. She says, well, what's another person's garbage is somebody else's treasure. And apparently there's rats and there's stink and there's all kinds of stuff.
They always say that when they want somebody, when they want to...
Well, the neighbors said the smelly trash has been steadily growing, claiming she's been collecting garbage for 10 years. They've asked her to clean it up on several times, and they've reached out to city agencies, which they said haven't done anything. And trash bags are piled as high as the second floor. And you can't even pass around there, so much fleas and smelling, said this one person. And there's 6-pound rats running around.
Yeah. Whenever you hear the hyperbole about that kind of stuff, I've heard it a million times about different people's houses, because when they try to take away somebody's kids, they always make up accusations.
Right.
And what they do is
feces everywhere.
That's what they say, something like that. They'll say, there was dog poop all over the house. Really? No, that probably means there was dog poop in like 2 places, or the dog walked through the poop and stepped in a couple of spots, or it's not all over the house. But that's the kind of, whenever I hear stuff like that, that's what I think of. Go ahead.
Well, the old sanitation notices are tucked in her fence. She's racked up more than $300,000 in fines since 2015 from the Department of Buildings for not keeping her property safe and code compliant. What I find interesting is since April, the Department of Health says the house has failed 4 inspections for creating conditions conducive to rats. Mm-hmm. This has been going on for 4 years, according to this, at least 4 years, and according to the neighbors, 10 years. What remedy do you have? I mean, why haven't they done anything? Apparently, they can't.
So there's 2 different things going on here.
Okay.
So if she were actually harming anybody, that person could get a remedy through the courts because they could sue her for the harm. But what's happened here is she's transgressed a bunch of codes. So the code enforcement people don't have nearly the judicial enforcement power that the other group that a court has for like a nuisance complaint or something.
Okay.
So they have to wait for things to get really bad to this extent, and then they can do something like foreclose on their property.
Well, $300,000.
That's what I mean. At that point, they can.
That's a lot. Well, it is interesting because we have the same thing here when the codes enforcement people show up here, and they have, when you see this, they'll show you a picture, and the fines are just unbelievable.
There was a story about Dunedin this month.
Is that right?
This last week, about the code enforcement fines. People will come to Florida, they'll have a winter home, they'll leave for a few months,
right,
and come back, and they can find, for example, $200 a day fines have been racking up on their home because of lack of lawn care or any number of transgressions through the code. And oftentimes they're not notified if they're home away from home.
Right.
So they don't even know that it's happening until they get a $30,000 fine. So
right.
They're not supposed to be onerous. There was just a case recently that was promulgated from the U.S. Supreme Court which says that these types of codes cannot be unreasonable. Okay, well, so now we have to have a hearing about whether or not it's reasonable. And the city people come around and say, well, we don't want the money. We're just trying to enforce the law. So okay, well then let them fix it. And
well, I've watched codes enforcement on television here in Gainesville, and the guy comes up and he shows the pictures, and here's the registered letter that was sent and so forth. And sometimes you'll see the owner actually show up there and say, this doesn't make any sense, I can't afford this, and they'll just basically arbitrarily forgive almost all of it, except for certain court costs for this.
Right.
So we're going to forgive the $15,000, but we still need $128 in court costs.
And I've had that happen. I had a woman come to me with $30-something thousand in fines on her property that was only worth $30-something thousand.
Right.
In the super low rent district, and it was from something with the Gainesville Regional Utilities. It had to do with their curb or something.
Right.
And they ended up forgiving it all, but like $50.
Yeah.
From $30,000 to $50.
Yeah.
And that doesn't show you the arbitrariness of a fine. Nothing does.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I just when I watch these people, they're so officious when the codes enforcement come.
Because they have to be.
Well, and they use the bureaucratic speak.
Sure.
And we did this. They all speak in the passive voice.
That's
the
right.
notice
problem was found. That's right. They have to do that because there's nothing supporting their authority except for words on paper.
Right. Interesting. We didn't, by the way, we didn't get yesterday. The codes people didn't come by yesterday.
Not that I saw.
Okay. Well, I mean, because we
don't charge.
No, we don't charge. Right. So. No, here in Gainesville, if you park cars on your lawn, you have to have a permit, and we didn't have one.
Nope.
Screw them. Inmate left paralyzed for life after prison guards broke her neck in a sadistic beating.
Yeah.
This was really unbelievable. I mean, a female, unbelievable. She's obviously she's a nutcase. They knew she was a nutcase.
Right. This is not at all unbelievable to me.
Really?
Yeah, I see this kind of thing all the time.
They broke her neck.
Yeah.
And she's paralyzed. She's a paraplegic now. She has a history of physical and mental disabilities, and apparently what she did was she didn't want to do something that they were trying to get her.
So here's what happens in jails. Oftentimes people don't want to do stuff, and they get made to do it. And what happens is 2 or 3 guards will gang up on somebody and throw them down the hallway or whatever, probably throw them into their room. Nobody ever questions a bump on the head, so they're rough with the prisoners, and it's. I mean, they have to do. They're not exactly. Everybody's not exactly perfectly well trained or anything. So they'll throw people down the stairs. They'll do all kinds of crazy stuff, and they'll hurt them pretty bad. So what happened obviously here is they were beating her up, and they hit her in the wrong spot. They never try to do permanent damage, of course, because then they can get in trouble.
Well, it was led to, they called it a confrontation with 4 correctional officers.
Of course, yes.
Correctional officers.
Right.
Okay, good.
But there's no.
So they beat her. The lawsuit stays. So anyway, they're suing
in the state of Florida.
And this is right here. Oh, I meant to mention this is right up the road here.
Yeah, this is in Lowell. I've been there.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's the women's place.
Yeah. So in the state of Florida, the primary purpose of the criminal justice system is not correction
No,
or
I know.
rehabilitation, it's punishment.
Right.
So
Yes.
different states are different in that regard.
Yeah.
But Florida is a little
Well,
worse.
it is fascinating to think that they and I know that in some of the places they're supposed to have the cameras and all that kind of stuff. I read the rest of this article, and apparently these people have been reassigned.
Sure.
The correctional officers have been reassigned someplace.
Good idea.
Yeah, good. Don't want to fire them without.
They'll do an investigation. People can
We
get in big
investigated
trouble.
ourselves
I've
and we-
defended people in that situation.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I've defended other inmates. I guess I haven't defended any prison guards that I can think. Maybe a couple. Not for. I don't think I've defended anybody for inmate transgressions, but
Moving on.
yes.
Vaping. We talked about this, I think, before.
Yeah.
It has killed 4 people and left 450 people sick because of deadly new lung disease. Health crisis linked to e-cigarettes has now spread to 33 states, and the CDC has said, please stop vaping. And 450 people across 33 states. Okay, so far 215 cases have been confirmed, but the CDC has dramatically expanded their investigation. It's unclear what, if any, of the people who died were vaping. They don't understand. They have no idea what's going on here.
Well,
But
look, as
it's-
we talked about last time, I think this is just a counter campaign. This is something the smoking people have conjured up and are paying to propagandize, because clearly the alternative numbers that have to do with smoking deaths are
Right.
far in excess.
Right.
So
God, I mean, I don't know how many. There's
they say
tens
quit
of-
vaping, and by the way, quit smoking too.
Yeah. Well, they did for a little while. They said this was a way to quit smoking
Yeah,
because you could do vaping instead. Well, it's still nicotine.
Yeah, but I would imagine that there's some differential.
Oh, I'm sure there is, but now they're saying no. Now there's another way.
Say there's 1,000 chemicals in a cigarette or
Yeah, oh
something.
yeah, that's right. Haven't been there. Speaking of judges and jails and so forth,
Uh-huh.
Felicity Huffman,
Yeah.
she tells the judge she wanted her daughter to have a fair shot at college acceptance. Now, this is why she's married to William H. Macy, and of course, this is why she ponied up $15,000 to this guy, the fixer, who made her look like she was a rower or something like that, to the daughter. And so she pled guilty, and they recommended that she spend. This is what I wanted to ask you about. They recommended to spend just 1 month in jail on connection to the college admissions scandal. She pleaded guilty in April to mail fraud and honest services fraud. Following her time inside, Huffman will be on supervised release for a year if prosecutors have described her acts as deliberately and manifestly criminal. Now, she's going to spend a month in the pokey?
No.
No. Okay, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking you.
So in California, what they do is they have an incredibly overcrowded jail and prison system. It's horribly overcrowded.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yes, and so they have regular reprieves where they cut people loose who are minor offenders.
Okay.
And so what'll happen is if she gets sentenced to 30 days in jail, she does like 5 days.
Okay.
And so we'll see. Probably one of those days is just spent during the booking process, and
Right.
another one is booking out, and she has 3 actual days in jail or something.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, we got a conviction, we sentenced her to a month, and they'll
Time off for good behavior.
That's right. Well, by then, everybody will have forgotten about that. Like
Yeah.
the number of people that'll see the release, that'll be a super small byline in the LA.
You think so?
Yeah, it'll be. Well, they might.
The paparazzi are going to be there.
Well, that's what in this
No.
case they might, but oftentimes it's pretty. It's not reported widely, not anything like the scandal itself. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be interesting to see, I guess. Now, was she fired from her job or something? Or did she get it back?
I don't know if she
was on-
I mean, she's an actress, so
Yeah.
she had a particular TV show. I
Yeah.
don't think she got it back. I just hadn't heard anything about her getting it back.
Now, in Colorado, this is now our friend Gene would know about this.
Yeah, I sent him a note. Gene, where are you?
Yeah, no, I did too. He said he was busy with trying to prepare for winter,
Okay.
so he had to put his boat out and I don't know,
Chop
batten
wood
down
and
the
stuff. I
hatches
got
and
you.
whatever. Yeah, free the nipple. Colorado City, this is Fort Collins, for God's sakes. Fort Collins is famous because that's where WWV is, the time standard that I used to listen to all the time. Anyway, city officials have removed a topless ban from city law that on women.
Okay.
So now in Fort Collins, women can walk around topless, as can the guys.
So the next Mardi Gras there will be awesome.
You can bet. And so they removed the language in the public nudity code that barred women and girls over the age of 10 from exposing their breasts in public. So in other words, back in the day, if you were 11, you couldn't do it, but now...
What's interesting about that is, of course, like under the age of 5, nobody cares. So that means between 5 and 10, there's a ban.
Yeah. Somebody who's a little fast on the, yeah, that's right. Anyway, September 17th, they're going to do it, and so they're going to stop defending the ordinance in court after they spent $322,000 on a suit. There was a suit. And the city, Fort Collins, spent $322,000 saying, look, we can't have topless women. And they lost. So now they're going to go ahead and...
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, the other thing is, speaking of courts,
okay,
the Supreme Court, which, by the way, is going to meet in just about a month.
Okay.
First Monday in October. Supreme Court, the Senate spent better part of 3 months in 1964 debating, amending, and voting the Civil Rights Act. And nobody used sexual orientation in that ruling in the Civil Rights Act. They said, they had it because it started off with...
Does this have to do with them separating gender from sex?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 55 years later, the Supreme Court has been asked to rule what the law does. In fact, cover sexual orientation in its Title VII ban on employment discrimination based on sex. The court has been asked to add gender identity to a protected class. They've added classes, as you know, from since the 1964.
Don't do it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Don't do it.
Well, it's interesting because it's going to affect a lawyer who is representing an estate of somebody is going to affect so many millions of people's lives. And apparently, this person was fired from his job as a skydiving instructor in 2010. After he revealed his homosexuality to a customer. So then the boss fired him, said, we can't have homosexuals jumping. You're not a protected class.
Right.
So we're firing you. And so they...
Well, that's not exactly true. They could interpret the anti-discrimination law to... since it covers sex, they could just simply say, and I guess this is what they're asking them to do, I mean, you could say that it covers sex if they're, well, I guess this is what they're gonna
do it. Here's a devout Christian, another guy who owns a funeral home, fired a funeral director who maintained a male gender identity for 6 years at work, and then started presenting himself as a woman. Mm-hmm. And of course, the funeral director guy said, "Wait, you can't do the. I'm not having you run. This is a place where we have decorum. You're supposed to be dressed in black and you walk around in it, not as a girl. And we don't have you." So anyway, the 6th U.S. Court of Appeals disagreed. They said sex, as defined in the Civil Rights, has come to mean gender identity. So. I don't know. Well,
yeah, look, I was trying to say earlier, I could see them reading sexual discrimination into gay discrimination. Like I could just see them just going, that's the same thing there, but we don't have to decide about preferences. That is, if you discriminate against a person on the basis of their sex for any reason, then that's discrimination.
Well, what about trans people?
Well, exactly. That's what
and what about if you want your pronoun to be different, and people just refuse to do it. They just they call you guy. When you want to be a girl.
Right. Well, there's different reasons as to different places in terms of just where discrimination might pop up. Look, I'm of the mind, I like the freedom concept, which is you get to hire and fire anybody you want for any reason you want. For any reason you want. I don't like you because you're tall, because you're black, because you're white, because you're small, because whatever. Because I don't like you. You look like my ex-girlfriend, or it's whatever it is. And then if somebody is being discriminatory in an overt way, they're not going to last long in business.
No.
This is the thing. This is the argument you hear all the time. People say, "Oh, women only make 66 cents on the dollar in terms of men." Really? So what you're telling me is that CEOs all over the country are willingly losing 36 cents on the dollar just because they're sexist?
Right.
No.
No. I mean, and of course, the guy next door making a competing product would have all women.
Right.
I
Sure.
mean, and undercut your.
Of course you would. Of course you would. So the market will weed out the unfair players. You don't have to have laws for them.
No. Well, yeah. Good luck on that.
I'm just saying that's where it should go, not back the other way. We're in the point of now we're going back to the Caribbean here. We're defining everybody in these micro categories. And,
Right.
And oh well, wait, what category are you in? Oh, that determines how much you were offended.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff still to come. Let me just. Oh, we're over time.
Uh-oh.
I had. Yeah. No.
What do you got?
Well, the only thing I did say one thing. You know we talked about last time about the Sharpie-gate.
Yeah. Well, no, that hadn't happened yet.
It did.
Well, no.
Oh, it hadn't happened.
No.
Okay. Well, what Trump did was when they had the cone
Yeah.
of where the hurricane was going to go in Florida, essentially, and all that stuff, and the cone was, and what he did was he took a Sharpie and extended the cone
I saw. Yeah.
to cover Alabama.
Yeah.
And of course, immediately he came under fire because they said, well, you know, this shows you how stupid he is. Blah blah blah. They really jumped all over him. Well, now here is what, and it's one of these things that could have happened.
Well, look here's. What are you going to say about it? Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is when you see those lines on there where they're going, it could have happened anywhere. I mean, it just because he drew this thing and says it might be heading to Alabama with a Sharpie, and they got all over him because he knows more than the weatherman or blah blah blah, and they really pilloried Trump for this. So wait, it gets better.
Okay.
Now, if you go to the Reelect Trump campaign site, you can get Sharpies. The branded Trump 2020 branded Sharpies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's selling them.
Yeah.
He's selling them.
And this is what they get.
This is great.
This is what they get for trying to troll him on this.
I know.
This is like, look, who cares if he got it wrong? Who cares?
No, yeah.
I mean, unless he said Iowa, there's nothing wrong with him saying any state around the Gulf. And this is the map. I mean, look, there's one, whatever this HWF1 here line brings it into western Georgia. And yeah, if you drew a circle around this in the size of a hurricane,
you're right, exactly.
It would look exactly like what he drew.
It was 150 miles across. The hurricane was.
Yeah.
So if that's where the center of it is, you can bet a bunch of it is sitting out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and anybody who's been in hurricanes knows that these things go all over the place. And then you can see that map right there. It's spaghetti.
Well, of course, that was one of the things that we really liked was when there was a meme that somebody sent me on Facebook where somebody had actually taken a handful of wet spaghetti and thrown it on a map of Florida.
It's perfect. It's as good as any.
That was as good as any. That was right. That was funny. So I just thought that this was making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, well, that's what he should do with these kind of ridiculous things, because you really show your true bias when you're willing to jump on somebody for.
Oh, totally.
The other thing that they do all the time is for when he doesn't say something, like the win bigly thing, that he obviously clearly said big league.
Okay, right.
So they're making fun of something he didn't even actually say.
Right.
It's like, look, there's plenty of things he actually said which you can make fun of. Plenty.
That's right. Okay, well, the one last thing I've got is that the Russian robot F.E.D.O.R, whatever, has left the ISS.
Killed everybody on
Killed
the ISS.
everybody on there and is now. Anyway,
Has
this
declared
is a life-size
dominion over the United States.
Well, apparently he did whatever he was supposed to do.
He is refurbishing the space station to
That's-
bombard the surface of the
Well,
Earth.
not only that, of course, he's in the process now of beaming up his pals.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Watson is already on
That's
board.
right. That's it. So, but you know what I thought was interesting about this article? They had a little problem getting him on board, but they got him on. He did what he was supposed to do. They walked him around, but his name, I thought, this is a Russian.
Yeah.
robot. But F.E.D.O.R
Yeah.
is short for Final Experimental Demonstration Object Research.
Yeah.
That's English. It's a Russian robot.
Right.
And he's got an English name.
Well, that's good branding right there.
I'm telling you. I'm going like, who thought this up?
That's good.
I just thought it was great that he was able to do a bunch of stuff, and of course what they're aiming to do, which makes sense, is because we've seen a lot of science fiction shows like this where the robots actually do stuff like R2D2. He was in the outside.
Yeah, I was going to say go out there
and do this, and there
Yeah.
was another one with the Jupiter, or the guy that was on this big spaceship or whatever, and the little robots would go around and do stuff, the dangerous stuff. And so we've seen a lot of that, and that makes sense.
Sure.
So if you can get it to be autonomous. So anyway, it's after 5 o'clock, and I'll save the
Well,
stuff.
let's see. Well,
Unless you got something.
I read a couple of quick things, and
Okay.
they're real quick. So there's this black writer working on a TV show, and he used the N-word in the table read.
Okay.
And
What do you mean, the table read?
okay, so a table read is where you go over the script before you film a show.
Okay.
You bring out all the scripts, everybody hands them around, everybody sits around a table.
And you read it.
Exactly.
Okay, you read your part.
Exactly.
Okay.
And writers will sit there and rewrite things, and,
Right.
and so it's a big meeting. Sometimes people on the phone, that kind of stuff. Anyway, he used the N-word. He gets home, he gets a call from HR. And they're like, well, we heard you use the N-word in the meeting. And he's like, I am the N-word in the meeting.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you can write it, you can put it in the scripts, but you can't say it. And so he quit. And so it's interesting, though, because I've been dealing with this for a while. I have a good friend, hey, Kim, who will not let black guys call each other that.
Really?
Yeah. Just
They do it all the time.
I know.
I mean, when you see the comedians on stage,
I know, Dave Chappelle.
that's all they do.
I'm with
they get
you.
away with it.
Totally.
And I would imagine. What I'm curious to know is how much off-white can you be and use that word?
Oh, well, no, you can be any, because obviously, like somebody like Kamala Harris, I'm sure can
Right.
get away with it. you
Okay.
know. So I imagine you could be pretty much any, but I just think it's funny that there are white people who are interdicting black people's freedom because of the connotation about interdicting black people's freedom. That the word
But I am one.
they can't. Nope, sorry, you can't describe it. I just thought it was funny. Oregon has a new effort to limit self-checkout robots in grocery stores.
What?
They're replacing too many workers.
Really?
Yes.
Boy, shocker. So let me understand this.
The Luddites are out.
So the question I have is,
You get two. You can have two.
two checkout,
Yeah.
two auto checkouts.
That's right. And then
Boy, I'll tell you, they'd be in trouble over here at Home Depot or
I
someplace.
see.
It's all you can do. I'll tell you one thing that is kind of interesting. Oregon, you'd expect this.
Yes.
Of course, this is a job thing or whatever. And if you can have two, I wonder if you had only two.
Right, that's it.
That's it. You the store, if you come in here,
person.
you don't even have.
Well, look, the RFID thing has been around for a while. I'm surprised they haven't configured that perfectly yet, so that all you do is put all your stuff in your wagon and wheel it out the door.
Yeah.
And it deducts it from your account.
Right.
And that's either you get green lit through the tunnel or you don't. You get blasted.
No, they have. It is interesting. They still have what they're going to have with the self-driving cars, for instance, is right now they have somebody that's just sitting there.
Yes.
When they,
I know.
For now.
I know.
They also have at the self-checkout places.
Yes.
They have a girl or a guy standing there.
That's right.
That if you get stuck,
That's right.
they will do it for you. Or
Well, what you need is that person now can be like totally disabled. They can be like a paraplegic.
Right. Do
anything.
And they can, yeah, that's great. So
So,
but that person has got to know that they're not going to last long.
yeah.
As more and more people, I mean, I go over there. I've gotten to the point now where I prefer it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've just gotten to the point now.
I was
at Home Depot 2 days ago.
Yeah,
and
right.
for the very first time, I'm like, let me just go through the self checkout.
Yeah.
But every time up till then, I've been going the other way. Well, we'll see. Get ready. So one thing I saw that I actually agreed with Bernie on a tweet that he wrote.
Okay.
College athletes should get paid.
Okay.
That's one of Bernie's stances.
Okay.
It's interesting. And now, what's interesting about that is, it's interesting that Bernie's so authentic and is authentic. That's him. He really believes all the stuff that he says.
Mm-hmm.
Contrast that with somebody like Kamala Harris, who this week was at a rally. Somebody came out and said, "Oh, Trump and his people are retarded," and everybody's like, "Oh, you can't say the R word." No, they didn't say that. She said, right then, Kamala Harris said, "Well put," and then they came back, and later
she claims she didn't hear it.
Right. So what did she mean when she said "well put"? Well, exactly. It doesn't make any sense. If you said "well put," that implies you heard it. I mean, unless you just said "well put." Either way, you're disingenuous. Yeah. Because either I'm just saying, of all the candidates, she strikes me as the least trustworthy. And Bernie is, to me, the most trustworthy.
Think about though, just chat for a second on this paying of athletes, because they get a full scholarship. Yeah. And that's got to be worth a couple $100,000. In
some schools, sure.
In some schools it is. Now, also, what about the schools that don't have the athletic does not support, like it does here in Florida?
Right.
It actually costs money.
The answer to that, is just let them negotiate. Just let them negotiate. Yeah. Is all you got to do. The problem is there's a rule, there's a law. Right. No paying.
Right. That's the NCAA.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you just took that out of there and let the colleges fight for it, they would work it out. And okay, you get here's your tuition plus this or minus that or whatever it is. But at least you could negotiate, and it's just a travesty.
It would certainly be right now the only incentive really that at least in the football and basketball and so forth, and baseball even, is the chance to go pro.
Right.
Which of course is like 1 in 100.
Right. It's terribly small. You can't even do endorsement deals as a college.
Right.
They're selling jerseys with your name on it.
Yep. That's right.
Out the door.
That's right. And they're not cheap.
Well, no, that's the whole point. You can sell something with a name on it for twice what you can sell something without a name on it. Or more.
Or you can get your Sharpie and put it on there.
That's it.
Get your Trump Sharpie.
I loved the memes. Did you see the memes? All the different stuff, the Sharpie memes?
No.
Oh my God, they've been great.
Okay, well, no, I saw one where they painted Trump's face up to look like a cat.
Oh, no, the best ones were like the dartboard with all the darts on like the wall, but little Sharpie circles drawn out from the dartboard.
Okay.
And then another one was him walking with Melania, and they had her hand drawn holding his hand. Great stuff there. You gotta like that. But of course, he's going to capitalize on it, as he already has.
I mean, that's right away. I mean, that would have been the first thing I'd have thought of is, you call up your branding people. Yeah. I mean, they can make $1 million of it in 10 minutes.
The guy's a master salesman, marketer. So, all right. Dun, 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 dun.
See if I got it.
Hey, everybody! This has been the Jimmy Doane Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you had a good time. We did. Join us again in a couple of days. We'll be back on Wednesday. Oh, there you go. Yeah. That's right.
There's money. All I want. We're going to have to put our Bitcoin thing up there so people can contribute to Bitcoin.
Oh, well, that's on our website.
Okay.
Go to our website, jimmydoneshow.com. Check that out. We have
because we're not even going to use Patreon. We're just going to use the Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've got a Bitcoin wallet there. So we do have a Patreon account, but we haven't used it yet, so. All right.
Okay, done.
All right. We'll see you soon.